Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll just start and get going and rolling for the night. So I'm Karina Donkers, and I'm going to be co-facilitating the Rise to the Call course with Kate Nelson. And I'm really, really excited to be joining and bringing together this community from all over Australia and the world. And we have a beautiful group of about 13 of us. We like to keep them nice and small, so in these sessions we can interact and we can connect in a really intimate way and support you the best we can in this space. So to begin with, I would really like us to drop in so that we are fully present for this hour and 15 minutes together. If you just take a moment to just close down the eyes. Just becoming aware of our bodies, of our breath, and taking a big breath in through the nose and letting a sigh out through the mouth. Letting anything that needs to be let go of from today or this week just float away. Taking one more of those in through the nose and out, sigh through the mouth. Just keeping our eyes closed for a moment as we deepen the breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Just welcoming in whatever journey that you need to take on this next 4 weeks. Trusting that whatever needs to drop in will. And opening to the support that me and Kate hope to provide for you. And also this beautiful community that you're going to connect into. Just taking a few deep breaths. And coming to eyes open slowly. So lovely to see your beautiful faces. To begin the Rise to the Call course, I would like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of all of the lands that we come from. For me, I come from the bottom of Australia and an hour and a half outside of Melbourne in a place called Torquay. And that is traditionally Wadawurrung country. And I would like to acknowledge any elders, past, present and future, and any of those that are going to join us to journey with us in the next stages of life. I think it's particularly important to acknowledge the traditional caretakers of the land because of the topics that we're going to be discussing in the Rise to the Call course. This course is focused around sustainability and earth and nature and the healing and the caretaking of the earth. And this is many of the things that First Nations people have been doing organically for thousands and thousands of years. And so I would like to, from the very bottom of my heart, honour that and that wisdom that comes from those people. So we're going to jump straight into what Rise to the Call is and what we're doing. But first of all, I would like to quickly share with you why it is that we thought it was important. So me and Kate came across each other only last year through our journeys just happened to intercross with each other, and we realised that we had very similar paths and that we had both a calling and a passion for very similar things, but also that we had witnessed around us through our experience many people feeling that they wanted to make a difference, however, not feeling empowered or not knowing how they can really connect into things, or to find their path of how they're going to be part of the healing of the earth. And that's where that small little thing was how we originated and developed this course and became we're our offering that birthed between the two of us, and that's why we created this community. So I'll pass over to Kate to go more into about what the course is and how it's structured and what this week is about.
Hey guys, so wonderful to be here with you all. Hannah, Annie, and Lauren, thank you guys so much for making it. I am really excited for this journey with you. And yeah, it's going to be incredible. We're so grateful to be able to do the second round here of this course. I am currently in Los Angeles. It's midnight. I'm a little bit tired because I've been going to 6 a.m. yoga every day. But I would like to honor the traditional landowners here. The tribe were known as the Gabrieleno. And so I just want to honor the Native American people who used to roam this beautiful land here, and surely the ocean was much more glorious and sparkly back then. So definitely tuning into them, the spirits. So yes, creating this course, Rise to the Call, is because last year felt like a painful time, hard, as everyone kind of started to awaken to what's happening in the planet, our environment, humanity, realizing all of the suffering, the pollution, the changing climate. So this year needs to be a year of action, and more people than ever are feeling called. And we hear you. We hear this desire to rise, to do something more, to make a difference. But in my experience, I hear so much people wanting to do something, but just not knowing how or what to do. So it's more important now than ever to step up and to do something. We need urgently so much action for the planet, which you guys know. That's why you're here. So we're going to share our stories, what we've learned, and then give you some strategies and tools to be a part of the movement, to create your own movement, to create your own campaigns, to build your team, to be effective change makers in this crucial, dire time. And Kaz is very well versed in deep ecology. I met her last year at a little potluck in Byron Bay, and then she came to my workshop, and I just was like, man, deep ecology keeps coming up for me. It's such a beautiful modality or framework to view the world. And I think that's what's really important about this course is how much it integrates deep ecology, because it's not just here's how you become an activist, like make a team, make a campaign, launch campaign, success. It's that's the rigid, that's the masculine that's kind of got us into this mess. That's like, do this and then you get this. Instead, we're fluid. The future is feminine. We're coming at this from this kind of like natural, organic perspective, where we need to be able to be like water and flow over and around the obstacles. And I just love Joanna Macy's work that reconnects and all of the deep ecology. It's so beautiful. So that's why we incorporate that in with the practical tools and resources of the environmental activism. And ultimately, we just want to, my intention is to just connect with you, get to know you, and support your ideas to fruition. That's my intention. That's why I'm here. And why do we call it Rising to the Call? As mentioned, you probably feel this call to do something. So we want to support you to rise. This week, each week is a different part of us that is rising to this call. We kind of have these circles, and so in the middle of in this um, model is the self. And then we expand outward. Each week we go from self, and then we go to nature, connecting to nature, and then community, connecting to community, rising in community, world, connecting to world, and rising as a world, as a planet. So self is super important. This is like the center of our universe, the self. From here, we ripple outward to nature. And if we, where we take this time, this entire webinar is dedicated to self, this journey, because we have to go inward first in order to be strong and able to be effective outward. So really important to really reflect on and set ourselves up for success, how to stay healthy. So that we can stay true to this urgent mission. And that's why it's really important we emphasize in the PDF that you got sent, authenticity and self-care, because if you burn out and die, who takes over your mission? And it's easy to convince ourselves, but if I stop, like, the world's going to unravel. But if you unravel, no one continues the work. So this is why we talk about boundaries, why we talk about self-care, self-love, authenticity, above all, taking care of self, so that we're the strong warriors. So I'll talk about this later in the webinar, but this is a practice around developing self-care routine, self-love, and what I like to refer to as true north. So finding your recipe that helps always bring you back into alignment. So the self in rising, we want to support yourself in rising. And again, that takes foundation, that takes connecting to inward, closing your eyes, breathing like Kaz just led us through that beautiful meditation, and feeling into the self. And as you probably got in the meditation we emailed you as well, just being able to tune in to what feels good and right to you. And that's how we stay authentic. That's how we stay on path, and that's what eventually helps us build credibility. So my biggest advice for module 1 is be authentically you in all that you do. That is just your truest way to stay on your path and not be distracted. So takeaways from today, we really hope to help you tune in to your specific calling. We want to help you find your true north, or these kind of like recipes of self-care and self-love. And we're going to hear from you today. So we want to know what you are desiring from this course and what campaigns and projects you want to work on. And just basically trying to connect to yourself so that then we can connect to each other and really lean on this community that we're creating together. And then Kaz is going to give us a really lovely introduction to deep ecology. You would have received a lot of this in the PDF, but just some more juicy amazingness from Joanna Macy. So that's a little bit of the what to expect from the webinar. And now I'm going to just give you a little background on myself, because we want to hear from you guys, but we thought it would be helpful if you could tune in a little bit to us and why we're leading this, what qualifies us. So my name's Kate, and I am online as Plastic Free Mermaid. Some of you may follow me there. I grew up as went to summer camp and was a junior lifeguard, and definitely was always told by my family to leave the campground better than we found it. So we were always cleaning up, and that was instilled in me, as well as volunteering and service work. So I was volunteering with a scientist about 10 years ago, and she was studying microorganisms ingesting microplastics, which at the time I was like, come again? Pardon, can you explain? And this was when I learned that plastic does not biodegrade, and that it was collecting in our oceans and our waterways. So of all the things impacting the planet, this felt like something that I could really handle and manage on my own. So I gave up using plastics. That was about 10 years ago. And I started a nonprofit with my girlfriends called Save the Mermaids. So just invited in all my girls. I just was like, man, this is really upsetting to me. I want to do something. And we founded this organization. Um, Became an activist. We used to dress up like mermaids and parade down the streets of Santa Barbara, where we lived in California, and lobbied to ban plastic bags, which eventually passed. I worked on the bill in Santa Barbara, in Los Angeles, and then the statewide bill in California banning plastic bags. Then I wanted more science experience, so I went down to San Diego and worked in the Marine Debris Lab for San Diego Coastkeeper. Then I wanted more marketing experience, so I moved to LA and worked for a recycled plastic activewear brand, one of the first ones that was doing bottles into activewear. And I was the social media and marketing director there for a year, learned a lot. And then I moved to Australia to go fully plastic free, and supported a lot of existing organizations there, bridging the gap between science and the general public. Just learning how to communicate and identifying like gaps in the market in terms of education and awareness and activism. And now, yeah, I just learned to see, I think 3 years ago, I launched my first mermaid retreat to balance all of the heavy science and pollution work I was doing with some magical adventure. And as I got deeper into the activism, joining the global campaign, the Breakthrough from Plastic Alliance, it was getting heavier and heavier. Last year, I went to Indonesia, Kenya, Philippines to study plastic pollution, and work on the global campaign to put pressure on corporations, which I joined Greenpeace in Europe just a few months ago. So, yeah, there's been a lot of activism and learning, and so this journey. And when I met Kaz, I was just so interested in deep ecology. It feels so important to have this sort of philosophical and spiritual approach to our activism. That's definitely what I feel a lot of the activism is missing. Like there's no heart, there's no soul. It's kind of bureaucratic. So connected change makers, activists that are spiritual, activists that are have a relationship with nature, their community, and their self. So yeah, that's my background. I just wrote a book. It'll be out in February, called I Quit Plastics. I have another online course which teaches how to quit plastics, and I think that's about it. Just hosting mermaid retreats, and currently in California, exploring some of the alternatives to plastic. So I'm going to a conference tomorrow called Unwrapped in Santa Cruz, which is going to teach me all about the toxicity in plastic food packaging. So that's what I'm up to. All right, Kaz, how did you start?
Beautiful. I love hearing everyone's stories, like again and again. And I'm so excited as well to hear about all of your individual stories. So, yeah, where did I start? I feel like I grew up in a family that was quite sustainable, and held those values quite tightly. However, it wasn't until I was 16 or so that I really got active and took it on as my own calling. So I'm actually a social worker and a trained social worker, and I've specialised in mental health, women's rights, community development, and then also the impact of climate change, so the inequitable impact. So my first interest of climate change actually didn't come from originally from a space, although I loved the environment, it came from a human rights and social justice perspective of me really seeing that as a social worker, my biggest passions was trying to support the most vulnerable communities in society, and to address the inequalities in our society. And I realized that there was now this bigger overarching problem that needed my attention. And that's where I ended up specializing in that area. And so I've been part of the movement for about 10 to 15 years now. And I have been from volunteering to working, and I haven't really had one specific path, which hopefully will become quite helpful for you guys, because I have varied experience from working with NGOs in other countries such as Sri Lanka and that kind of thing, working on the inequitable impacts of climate change, to running conferences, to being really frontline activist coal stuff. So just a range of different things. And then from that activism and that involvement and that social work background, it's probably the last few years that my shift has moved from a fully activist go to more of the deep ecology, nature connection, and marrying those two worlds together in a more solid way. And so I came across deep ecology a fair few years ago, and what it did was it gave me this framework for what my body already knew. So it was like the description and the understanding of something that this is what I already know to be true, but it gives me ability to talk about it, the language to talk about it, the ability to explain the things that I couldn't put words to previously. And through that journey, I've had the absolute privilege, and I feel like I've been incredibly lucky, because I did get the chance to train under some really poignant people. So Joanna Macy is one of the people that Kate referenced, and she is one of the grandmothers of deep ecology. And that concept I'll explain a little bit more later on, although I'm sure you probably have a bit of a foundation of it. And she's one of the grandmothers, and she has this work called The Work That Reconnects. And I traveled to California and was able to hear from her and learn from her herself around how do we reconnect people to self and earth, and through that understanding, find their part in the healing and activate them. And so then in the last few years, I've also had the privilege of being apprenticing and mentored by a local woman called Claire Dunn, who is the author of My Year Without Matches. And she's a deep ecologist and deep nature connection and rewilder. And so she looks at the earth wisdom. She's spent a whole year living off the land in the outbacks of Australia, in the bush area of Australia, and she's incorporated all of this knowledge into how do we, in urbanized areas, re-find our wild and re-find our interconnectedness with all things, so that we can be better part of the healing of the world. And then from that, like all of those kind of bits and pieces of activism, deep ecology, my mentoring, Joanna Macy, Tom Brown, all my teachers. Start of last year, I actually left my full-time job, and I was like, okay, I really want to commit full-time to providing this work to the world, and to really stepping into my calling in a full-time capacity, whereas it was always a part-time or on the side thing, as much, giving as much time as possible. And last year I developed a project called Eco Voices, and I travelled up the east coast of Australia, working with different species that were being affected by climate change and habitat destruction, but really gathering the stories on this perspective of connection. So trying to gather and capture those moments between the human and the non-human world, and tell those stories of interaction from the amazing conservationists and scientists and volunteers that are having these moments, and bringing those stories to the wider public to remind us that we are nature and that we're connected, and help us to re-fall in love with the natural world. And also through that project, I ran a lot of things like beach cleanups, campaigns and that kind of thing. So I partnered with major organisations up the East Coast to try and address this big problem that we're facing, as well as offering workshops in the work that reconnects and deep ecology. So that's how I ended up here, and how I ended up coming across Kate. And for me, it has been an amazing journey and so fulfilling for myself. And that's why I really wanted to be able to offer some of this to other people, because of how much I've gained out of it. And so to begin with, I'd really like to share the 3 stories of our time. So that was in the PDF. And the reason that I want to share this is that it's a very simple way of looking at things, but it's also a really powerful way of being able to frame where we're going and how we're bringing self to the world. And so for those who haven't read it, or for those who have, the 3 stories of our time work as 3 different narratives that are happening simultaneously. There's the first story, which is the business as usual. So let's do it. Let's keep going. Everything's fine. What we're doing is amazing. Let's just keep trucking along. Everything, it does, you know, the environmental crisis is just a bit of a bump in the road. If anything, we're just going to profit from it and figure it out. So that's the business as usual. And you'll hear that a lot from, you know, unfortunately in Australia, a lot from our politicians, some main key characters in our societies, and from a lot of, and from part of our society as well. Then you hear the second story, which is the Great Unraveling. And that is another story and another narrative that talks about the impact of the business as usual story. So the consequences of that story happening to our world. So the impacts of climate change, the tensions that are happening in the world, the unraveling. So the things that are, you know, the species that are going extinct. That's the business as usual unraveling. And then there is the third story, which is called The Great Turning. And Joanna Macy puts it in these 3 terms because the Great Unraveling is not untrue. It is happening, but it's not an empowering story. Whereas the Great Turning is those who see that the Great Unraveling is happening, they acknowledge it. They go, okay, I see that, I acknowledge it, I speak about it, but then I decide that that's no longer going to be the last story. It's not going to be the ending of the story. It's not going to get the last word in. And the Great Turning is where we go, okay, well, yeah, that is happening. Let's create a new narrative, a new ending, a new story, or a new chapter, more like it. That is the Great Turning, where we're going, this no longer works. Let's change it. Let's challenge the business as usual. Let's challenge the Great Unraveling to design and create an innovative and sustainable and life-sustaining world. And the Great Turning, although it is an acknowledgement of the poignant and really quite intense time of history we're in, it's also a really exciting and powerful part to be a part of, like community to be a part of. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to drop in and we're going to just have a quick connect into ourselves, because this week is all about self. So we're going to connect into ourselves. I'm going to do a quick meditation that will allow us to go, all right, what is it that I'm being called to do? What part am I being called to play in the Great Turning? What is my part in this wider story? And so I invite you once again to close down the eyes. Just taking a few deep breaths like we did at the start. Breathing in through the nose, filling up our bellies, our ribs, and our chest. And exhaling our chest, ribs, and belly. starting to tune in to our full selves, the knowing that lives deep within our bodies. With every breath, feeling ourselves relax and starting to open up to that nagging call or feeling inside of us that is trying to get our attention. Tuning in to what it is that we're here to do on this planet. Our offering of healing. It might be a bit vague or fuzzy, or it might be really crisp and clear. Just allowing it to be however it is. Knowing that in time it will form, but just for now, welcoming it into our being. What is calling you to give your attention to, your time to, your love and your passion to? With each breath, feeling that form to be clearer and clearer. It might be something small or something big. Whatever it is just perfectly for you. Knowing that you're going to birth this into the world, or already are birthing this in the next few weeks and ongoingly. And with the next breath, coming to open your eyes. And if you need, I really encourage you, for whatever came to mind or whatever that calling was, if you need to write it down. Because now we're going to do a bit of a sharing that Kate's going to run from that.
Thank you for that beautiful meditation. This is your part. You guys get to talk now, and I'm really happy because only 3 of you are here, which is awesome because that means we get to hear more from you. And sad because we're missing so many of our classmates. We miss you, classmates, all of you who are watching this, but really excited to hear from you. As I mentioned, my intention is to connect with you and learn about what is important to you and what you want to, what change you want to make. One of my greatest frustrations with having an Instagram with tons of followers is that I can't connect deep with people, and I get so many messages every day to my Instagram inbox and comments on the photos, and I just can't keep up, and I don't even see most of them, and it hurts because I want to. There's so much potential for change and for positive growth, and I'm working on automating that, but I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much for signing up for this course, for signing up for this one-on-one time with Kaz and I, because it's really, really special. And so want to hear from you what you want from this course, why you're here, where you're from, or where you're calling from. and what it is you want to do, what you want to change. With Kaz's meditation about feeling into what your calling is, that could change, that could shift. The world, as the world shifts, your calling, your path, your purpose, all of these things, your passions may shift. So don't feel like what you say right now, don't feel like that's in stone and that's holding you for your life. This is just, maybe something that you're thinking about, a campaign or a project that you're kind of interested in. Maybe there's a cafe in your town that you're like, we could start with this, plastic free, or maybe you have no idea and that's why you're here. So this is your chance to tell us who you are, what you dream of, what you want out of the course, because we want to be accountable to you, and we want to lift you up and help you rise to your calling. So let's hear if are you guys all able to use the chat, hopefully, and if you can make your video seen, and then just type your name if you're ready to share, please, or just type anything.
You type your name, I will unmute that person so that you'll be able to share. So whoever's first, just chuck your name in the little part.
Don't be shy.
Okay, beautiful. We got Annie. Here we go. 1 second.
Just before.
Unmute.
Okay, I just want to say one thing, Annie, before you go. Setting the container for this course, Kaz did such a beautiful job welcoming us all to the space and welcoming the elders and spirits to guide us and help us. And I just want to say that we're also here in community, holding space and with absolute respect and zero judgment. Everything here is fully sacred to us, and we're just so grateful to be here with you. So I hope that you feel safe, and that you can trust us. I'm here for you. All right, Annie.
Great. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good stuff. Okay. Definitely saw a pattern with both of your stories, coming from very sustainable homes. Sounds like your families are quite in touch with nature and even aware of some of the issues before they were quite publicized today. Going back, I guess, to your childhood, which was definitely not the case for me. I have definitely been dealing with not knowing who I am or why I'm different and why I'm the only one who seems to care or know about these things. Not even just in my family, but my friends and my wider community. So it's definitely been a really hard struggle, even just getting to a point. I knew that I did a Bachelor of Commerce, majored in finance because my dad told me to. He just said, this is good, this will set you up, get you money. I was like, yep, cool. I don't know what I want to do, so why not? And then, you end up finishing and I'm like, well, I don't want to do this, but I don't know what I do want to do. And I just knew what I didn't want or who I wasn't. But it took a lot of work to kind of come to this point, where I've kind of put my passions into words or my interests or my connections into, I guess, an area that I could explain to other people, which really helped by I follow you, Kate, finding people like you online, and I don't know, it just helps you. I don't know, it's just like someone's put it into words for you and shown you their stories, and then through there you find other people. So right now I'm sitting at work. I work at Credit Suisse, a global investment bank. And I'm, I guess, on my journey. Actually, what was interesting, Kaz, that you said, you left your full-time job, which is obviously an area for me that I think about, because I know the energy and time I could be putting into something else. And it's so draining knowing that I spend 8 hours a day climbing towards this goal that I don't really believe in. So it would be really nice to move over and get into my own time, my own space to do things I actually care about or So, yeah, why am I here? Pretty lost. I know what I care about. I think it's for you, the beach, Kate. For me, other people. I don't know, just like the powerless, whether it's people or animals or even the planet, just like helping anything that is sort of powerless. And I think I've seen, definitely I'm in a capitalist environment and growing up in kind of a family where I didn't have a voice or a say, and what I cared about didn't matter. It was just about money and status. So yeah, for me, I just want to give a voice and help people find themselves. And I think when we really connect to who we are, like, we don't really care about ripping off people and making money, and they're the things I realized. So that's enough. I don't know what else to touch on. Yeah, big journey.
Do you have a like a specific campaign that you are wanting to launch, or are you just kind of wanting to, like, what's your intention for being here, and like maybe something more specific?
Yeah, I find that I'm really torn. You get all this information all day about the world ending, basically, and it's just like I feel torn in 100 directions all the time, and I'm like, I can't fix everything. I know that. So I guess I'm here. This first module is probably why I'm here, to figure out what I want to do and how I can help and where my skills can lead me. I definitely have noticed that I'm really interested in shifting the mindset, so changing people's mindset and sparking that light bulb moment, especially like talking to my dad. You could imagine is like, no, that's rude. I was going to say Donald Trump, but someone who thinks about capitalism and things like that. So to be so true, like they are living that first story. There is no other story, which is really good for me because sometimes he gives me, I don't know, talking to him just makes me want to be better or have better answers. And it's actually really good because sometimes I'll talk about things and he'll be like, oh, well, I've never seen you help other people. Or he'll just say something like that and then I'll go do it. And it's just great. Like he pushes me to be better in what I'm doing anyway, even if, it could be viewed as a criticism. I'm just viewing it as like, okay, let's do that then. Yeah, so I think changing mindsets, which is education. I think education is so important. That's definitely a focus I look at. And within my work, we have like a ESG analyst who is like environmental and social governance, which no one really seems to care about. He comes down, no one wants to meet with him. It's funny. And he brought out a plastics report with just, I guess, a lot of information and facts and how people can invest differently to help the planet, or how their investments are not going to be viable long term. And I just kind of suggested that it was just a really good format. And I was like, if you could just simplify this, you could send it to schools. And so I've been through the kind of bureaucratic, getting compliance, ticked off, and then getting the analyst to say yes. So I've got all these yeses. It's just like doing the work. I think I keep expecting like someone else to make the slideshow for me, or I don't know, set up the dates. And then I really realized like, no, I have to do everything. So just trying to kick my butt into gear, get motivated to do it now that I've got approval. So that's just one thing. But also I joined the Wilderness Society, which is like a local, well, it's Australia-wide charity, and doing a community leader program with them, which will probably be similar to this course but more local, figuring out how I can help locally and meeting my local MP and member of parliament and putting things more into action. I think I've been talking for a long time about what I care about to people, and finally got to the point where I just want to do something about
Hmm. And you're in Victoria, right?
Yeah, Melbourne.
Okay, cool. All right. So, what do we call is it for schools? The thing that you've
Yeah,
gotten
I
approval
was
for?
calling it like a environmental, what do they call it? Plastics Report Education Roadshow.
Okay.
Nice.
So he's brought out this report, and I just want to simplify it because I know the school I went to would be interested, and just having like a day there or, you know, an hour session to just create awareness, just so people know. And I also want to make sure, I went to a private high school. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship, but making sure like for every private school we go to, we match it with a public school, because yeah, I just think they should have the same opportunities. I don't know what America's like with schooling, but yeah, here you have public or private basically, and yeah, private has a lot of luxuries, obviously, with money.
Right, resources. Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that. Simplifying the plastics report, and also maybe education within a kind of a capitalist setting. These are nice. I like it, and also learning to trust yourself and knowing that, you know, your intuition is guiding you in your path and your purpose as legitimate, and you are seeking out, you're not the only one, you're seeking out community, you found it, here we are.
Yeah.
And you're also creating a safe space by like owning your path and this path, and talking about it. You're creating a safe space for other people who are probably around you to realize that they're not the only one too. And I think that's what's really interesting. At least that's what I've learned, is that me being so public and vocal about my plastic stuff gives other people permission to try a little bit harder, or to realize that they care about that too, or, you know, so it's creativity that we didn't even know we had to create. We didn't think that environmentalism was like separate from ourselves or from our lives. It's now become an other, right? It's not like integrated into our lives like we lived when you know, hundreds of years ago. So yeah, it's creating that community. So thank you, Annie.
And Annie, I find you really exciting. I find a lot of people exciting, but I think like it is such a strength to have someone who's come from a different background. Like you could like it sounded like there was an element of you seeing that as a weakness from coming from a place where you haven't grown up in sustainability and the course that you did. But actually I see that as an amazing strength. Like that is so exciting that you have this language that a lot of people who are part of the environment movement or this great turning don't have the language to be able to talk to those people that are so important to talk to, or to in sounding boards. You know, we're talking to each other and not to different communities that are not already on board. Like you have this amazing strength of knowing that world, but then also being able, like having this call to be able to create and shift them into a different world. But you will have the language and the networks and the understanding that a lot of us won't have. And I think that is really powerful. So don't underestimate like what edge that gives you is considerable, and can be used as one of your strengths and strategies around what you're going to bring to the world. So I think that's really amazing. That's really exciting.
Yeah. For a long time, I was just like, I'm going to have to move to like a company that cares about the environment. I'm going to have to join like a charity. Like it felt like the only option. And then like something just switched and I was like, no, I need to change where I am. That's where the issues are. They don't need help, you know, being environmentally conscious at a charity for the environment. They need help where I am because no one gives a damn. So definitely changed my view lately about where I'm needed or where I should be going.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. Yay.
No worries.
All right, Lauren or Hannah, who's next?
All right, so whoever wants to go next, if you want to type your name. Ah, great. So we got Hannah. Here we go. I'm just going to unmute you. 1 second. There you go. You're good to go.
Well, that was really cool hearing Addie speak first. Like, I was just going to say that if you wanted a platform, like this year I'm governessing, so like teaching School of the Air. So pretty much I'm like straight out of school last year, and I lived in the middle of nowhere, like in a desert, and I teach 2 little boys through like a distance ed program, and because we're 5 hours away from the nearest school, like on this station, and like you could so just jump on air and you could just speak to all these kids within a 5-hour radius of Broken Hill. So that's always an option if you're like keen on that. But for me, like I've always grown up in a like really quite sustainable family who's done a heap of traveling and like camping and just always encouraged like volunteering, and we've always been so like conscious of animals and birds and like even things down to like, you know, not collecting wood in the national park and stuff for habitat, and yeah, like really looking at equality and women's rights. And I just have never been like, my family's just never really, well, my direct family, I've got definitely cousins that need to be improved and stuff, but have always just been surrounded by that. And I think it's yeah, it's always just been burning inside of me that I want to share that with more people and get more people connected without them automatically becoming defensive of like, oh, just because I'm not doing it doesn't mean I'm a bad person, and like instead of them automatically defending themselves, like opening them up to the beauty of the natural world, and not automatically shutting down the conversation with just being like an ecologist or environmentalist that like sometimes can scare people with being like too eco, but just getting them interested more. And yeah, I think that like this year, being able to like the 2 boys I teach just so like into the environment, and the family is just so relying on their own veggie garden and stuff, like just being yeah, so self-reliant and not having to rely on being able to pop and get something, and they've got a really chemical-free lifestyle, and that's just really being surrounded by that has just been so cool. And like I really would just like to share that with more people. But yeah, I'm probably a lot more concerned with bird and animal conservation, and I've always really liked art, and so at the moment, like I've really been thinking about doing a children's book or art programs. Like I do some black photo pictures for the Stop Adani campaign the other night, and we're going to be sending them to the government. So like that was just sort of really first step for me to be like, oh cool, like I've got some skills that could go somewhere. So yeah, for me the animal and bird conservation is really up there. But yeah, other just how to get there is just kind of working out.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm hearing using art to kind of have more artistic ways to bridge the gap, and less sort of traditional environmental pathways, and more kind of artistic, creative ways, potentially a children's book for this this course. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Has she gone for you guys?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything. Maybe
Sorry, my internet's last.
Oh yeah, okay.
Can you yeah. Sorry, my internet's not that great in the middle of nowhere, but we're giving it a go.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah, so I think like I haven't been doing art for that long, so it's just sort of a new like opportunity or a path that I can go down. But yeah, just something that can share the beauty of the natural world with others is just like a main thing for me, because I've always loved it and been so connected to it, and I just want other people to be able to experience that too.
Mm,
So,
beautiful. I think that's so exciting because I feel like for me over particularly the last year, I've really seen how important it is that the creative side, that creativity meets sustainability, and our need for those skills in those areas to be able to communicate and connect with people in a different way, because we are such emotive beings. And I think creativity and art and that type of thing, it speaks a deeper language than sometimes we can put into words. And I think it connects on a really bodily and emotive level. And I'm really excited myself for exploring more about how creativity can be part of sustainability, but also I love that that's what you're doing, and I'm so excited to see how you're going to like mesh them into the one thing, because I think we can learn more and more about how do we do activism and creativity.
can you go over that last bit again, please, if that's all right?
Yes. I'm not sure what I was saying. I was just saying that like how important it is to create to use creativity and sustainability, and how it will access a different part of connecting with people and connecting with those who may not respond to being told facts and figures, and it will I just said I was excited about seeing what you're going to offer, because I think that's an area that I've been looking more and more into. So I think that's what I said.
Yeah, thanks you guys. It looks like Lauren had to run off to her event that she was getting ready for, which is fine because we are running out of time and we still have a bit to cover. So what I was going to talk about next is just reviewing something that I brought up in the meditation that you were emailed, but it's basically how to come back to your center, coming back to your true north. This is important because when we set these sort of intentions for this course, when we set intentions for our life, when we find our calling, when we choose our path or our purpose, we have to be able to tune into ourself. We need to, this is, I think, where a lot of the West, a lot of the global North goes wrong, goes astray, is that we're listening to someone else tell us how we're supposed to live our life. Like Annie shared, Dad told you to study finance. It's like we've all kind of been told the path that we're supposed to walk to meet success, especially in the West. So how do we, now we see that sort of society that's built on capitalism and consumption and greed is not serving us, is not serving the planet. Planet's dying, it's not serving us, it's not serving our souls. People are unhappy. Cancer is, loneliness is one of the highest causes of death, so there's a lot of stuff that isn't working. And when we look at why, it comes back to this sort of like lack of sovereignty in people. Humans are no longer making choices for themselves. They're making choices for what they think they're supposed to do. We're not buying stuff because we think it's going to help us live a more vibrant, juicy existence, a connected experience of life. We're buying it because the marketing convinces us that we need it, that we're not good enough without this thing. And so, being a warrior, being a change maker, being a leader in this space requires confidence. It requires bravery and courage. And it's unsustainable to not work on that and develop that within ourselves, because then we burn out, or we are wobbly if someone attacks us. You know, like again, Annie mentioned her dad questioning her so much, and then being like, man, I need to research more, and like that kind of challenges you to learn more and have better answers. And I can definitely relate to that. You know, it's like we want to focus on self. We need to go inward so we can also focus our attention and our energy, because otherwise we're so scattered. There's so many issues. It's so overwhelming. And then we're just like, ah. Which is why I chose plastics. You know, it was like the one thing I was like, oh man, instead of drinking out of plastic water bottles, I can bring my own. Like immediate result, you know, a direct effect. So that's what we want to do, is help us to focus our attention and focus our energy, so that we're not doing a million things like we're kind of conditioned to in our society: constant stimulus, constant advertising, all these distractions, but instead focus our attention so that we're quite effective on one project, one campaign, one mission, so that we can see it through to completion. And then we will feel good about, yes, we accomplished something. We're working on a project, someone else's or whatever. So that's the practical aspect. And then, you know, the process for tuning in is what I shared in the meditation that you were emailed. I think there's a barking dog in there, so I'm sorry if that startled you. But it's just to close your eyes and just breathe and feel into yourself, and do this often enough that you feel comfortable, and maybe you start to hear a voice. This is your intuition guiding you. Maybe you are able to take a pause in a situation, like if you're talking to someone who's a climate change denier, or you know, you're talking to someone who is judgmental, or you know, a child or something, and you just don't know how to answer them. It's like we have this option to say pause, and just take some space and go for a walk, or go outside, or just like right there in there, who cares what they think? Close your eyes and breathe deep, and just be like, okay, what am I, you know, center yourself, be grounded, connecting back to self. So this is a practice I really encourage you to start doing on a daily basis, and just becoming aware, even just witnessing yourself in daily life, in moments when you're kind of going along with society, with what we're supposed to do, and then when you can kind of be sovereign and be connected to yourself and be like, I choose this. You know, this isn't necessarily my path, but I choose to participate in it because it's getting me closer. It's a means to an end. But just becoming a witness, observing yourself in life, in our little society that's so fucking frustrating sometimes, that like, you know, is like, oh my God, I can't believe all these people don't even believe in climate change. I can't believe my own family members don't believe in climate change. I can't believe my uncle voted for Donald Trump. Oh my God, what is this place? I just need to go move to like Western Australia and live with whale sharks. Like, I'm just gonna go live in a cave. You know, it's like not gonna help save the planet that we love. So our challenge for self and rising for this week, for module 1, is to connect deeper into self by being aware. Yes, do the meditation. Yes, do the nature activity. Yes, like be quiet and breathe deeply to feel into self, and you know, feel into boundaries. What am I comfortable with? How much energy can I put towards something? How much am I willing to interact with this person or that person? You know, feeling into the boundaries for what you're capable of, but then also, how does myself show up in the world? How am I interacting in my job, in my community, with my family, with my friends? How am I, how can I rise to be my higher self? How can I start showing up as that higher self? You know, we're here, we're quietly like calling in the ancestors and the spirits and to guide us. And we're quiet and we're asking for intuition to guide us so that we may walk this higher path. You know, we don't want to just, um, you know, make money and buy a house and, you know, have family. We know we need to act for something larger than ourselves. So how can we show up as that person in everyday life? Um, and it's hard to remember that because we do get caught up in the sort of like routine of just like survival. You know, we still need to pay the bills. So I think I've come up with a little thing that's just my recipe for true north. And it's like, how do I remember to stay on my path, like to my higher and best? You know, there's many paths we can walk. It's like I could just like teach yoga and like chill and like go surfing, or I could like step up and fucking like share what I know about plastics and keep learning and work my ass off and start a podcast and try and get more answers and like do all this stuff. You know, it's like, how do I know what's really in alignment with my higher purpose, or what's just maybe serving my ego? Like, is that really helping the planet, or is that just for like, you know, it's like, how do we find these things that are lifting up our mission? And I believe that, you know, and you feel free to like write down what it is for you. For me, I need to move my body every day. Whether that's yoga or running or surfing, like I exercise is like the number one for me to like stay on my path. Um, and you know, I also breathing, like breath work, meditation, these are things that help me stay on my path so we don't get stuck back in the routine, but we have these little things, these reminders, these like ingredients, for example, of our recipe, our True North recipe, that we can like sprinkle in throughout the week to keep us aligned, to keep us on track, to keep us walking this higher path. You know, this it can also be self-love or self-care practices. You know, like you might have rituals every full moon or new moon, period, or right, or you know, setting yourself up for for a life of like this higher path by setting your rituals up, taking care of yourself. You know, maybe putting in your calendar journal every Monday, or like maybe every Monday you like want to start the week out great, so you meditate that morning, or maybe you set up coffee dates with some of your other eco friends, you know, or a walk in the park with an elder. You know, like start putting these things in your diary and your calendar that are going to bring you to that higher place. You know, we want you to write them down and set yourself up. You know, like Hannah, maybe the kids, taking them for a nature walk every week, and maybe learning something about the local environment that you didn't even know about, or maybe there's an elder nearby that could come tell stories and like talk story about like the indigenous culture. You know, just like tuning in, connecting to the nature there, going a little bit above and beyond in our just like regular daily life. Making that a little bit more magical and sacred by bringing that sort of energy that's like higher self energy to like the mundane. And that's how we survive. And that's how like the 8 hours at the desk job isn't so painful, because it's like, this is the means, I'm bringing the magic. Like it's like you're like a spy Annie inside this like finance building, and you're like, I'm spreading the good word. You know, it's like, what's your spirit animal, or like who are you showing up as? You know, like witnessing yourself in the real world and walking that higher path, and then sprinkling in the ingredients throughout your week to keep you on track and in alignment. So that's a lot, but I just want to invite you to, you know, if it helps, write a few things down for yourself that might bring you back to that higher path throughout your week. And any rituals of self-care and self-love that are going to help you stay true to yourself, because taking care of us, taking care of ourselves is the only way we're ever going to be able to take care of the planet. I've seen in my 10, 12, 15 years of activism, so many activists burn out. And even like, I haven't known anyone to take their own lives, but a lot of my activist friends have talked about that as well. So, you know, it's important that we have these self-love routines. Yeah, I invite you to put little notes in your calendar and keep yourself on track. Now, very exciting. Thank you, Karina. Deep ecology stuff.
Beautiful. The True North stuff has, like, from experience, has incredibly helped me. I just wanted to, kind of like what Annie mentioned, I just wanted to do everything. I was like, that's important, that's important, that's important, that's important. And like having that, like, really listen to what Kate's words is, because having that and figuring out what my soul needed and what the earth needed and what I was best here to do helps me to not try and do everything and to just come back to, okay, why am I doing this? And is this serving my soul's purpose of the healing of the earth? And that makes it a lot easier to not say yes to everything and to keep on my path. So I really encourage you to look into that and find your own recipe, like she said. And so to move on from that, but also on the same kind of level, is just a quick thing that I wanted to share. And it is about the superpower of not fitting in. And it was a TED Talk that I watched the other day, and it really is resonating with me right this moment. And so I wanted to share it with you. It was from Marianne Cantwell, and I'd never come across her before. But she spoke about that, and I think this is really important on this week's thing about self, because we have spent so much of our society celebrating people who are amazing at one thing. So they're celebrated, they're rewarded. You know, there's really powerful people who are just really great at, say, like the violin or like whatever. You know, these people who are just amazing at that one thing, and they fit into that box really clearly. And I feel like that is great. Those people are amazing. And we don't, like, the celebration is there. So we don't need to continue talking about that. But what I wanted to talk about was those who don't fit into that category. And this is what Marianne was talking about, was the superpower of not fitting in, which is people like myself and potentially some of you who aren't particularly amazing at anything, but we're good at multiple things. And her TED Talk really shared with me about how we can reframe that to be actually a superpower. Because by not fitting into any single box, so when we have tried to, and I have in the past, because society says you should be in a box, so please go in there and go sit in there. We try and go into that box. And then when we're these people who have so many interests and so much things that we want to be a part of, that when we're in that box, we feel like we're sacrificing a part of ourselves. And so then we feel unfulfilled, and then we go and try and find another box and go in there. But the beautiful thing about this concept, and it has a word, is called people who are liminal. And it's where you don't belong anywhere. And in that is so powerful, because you can take bits and pieces of all of the places you have your foot in and find the intersection of them. Find that creative space where you can make your own shade of colour in life and your own mark. So one of the instead of being a specialist, you become a more generalist, but a generalist in you pull all these things together and you go, okay, I'm a people person, and I'm creative, and I'm a dancer, and I'm an environmentalist, and I, you know, all of these things. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do with all of them. But instead, what I've done is you've drawn them all together and you've created your own unique, powerful space. And that's where that links to the True North thing. It's like, that is your own shade. And that's where the most, you know, innovators that have created the biggest change have come from those areas. And we don't speak about these people. We don't speak about these people that bring in a new box. They create their own box, and that's really, really special. So one of my friends, for instance, she has this, she was a surfer, and she was passionate about working with young people and a social worker. And she was also passionate about mentoring and mental health. And she was like, well, none of them fit. And she ended up making a surfing mentoring program for young people with mental health issues and created it. And that was called Ocean Mind. And so I just wanted to speak about that because we often talk about that one person with that amazing one skill and damn, they kill it, but also celebrating those people who don't really have that amazing thing, but they have multiple skills. But then moving on to deep ecology. And so deep ecology will be a theme that is going to be an umbrella throughout the entirety of this course. And what it is essentially an understanding that we are all part of a larger living whole. So we're a cell in a larger living organism. And it's really that in recognition of that profound interconnectedness of life, and that we are part of it instead of separate to it. So many of us in Western societies have been continuously encouraged to view ourselves as separate to each other, separate to other living things, separate to nature. And it's through this lens of separation and distance that has allowed us to forget the very thing that keeps us alive. And we've forgotten essentially who we are in the greater story of life. So part of this work in deep ecology is about a returning to our knowing of our inherent belonging to the earth. So this is a profound concept. It sounds very simple, but when we really embody it and we understand it, it shifts how we interact, how we live our lives, how we act on behalf of life. And so it helps us to be able to choose life, which is a concept that Joanna Macy used. And when I say choose life, I'm referring to the concept of that in every moment and in every action, we get the choice to either choose life or not to choose life. So to choose a direction and a future that holds and honors life, or to not. And that is part of deep ecology, is like around re-feeling an embodied space of, wow, we are part of this amazing, interconnected, complex living organism, and not just here on a planet. No, we actually are Earth in moving. And it is a lot of that wisdom that Indigenous people have always known and held, that we are nature and not separate to it. And so what we do to nature, we also do to ourselves. And so the deep ecology framework is how we come to an ecological self. So Arne Næss, who's the Norwegian philosopher who developed the concept and coined the concept deep ecology, also coined the ecological self, which is when we move from an ego sense of self, so individual, me, you, separate, our individualistic society of, you know, I'm important, me above other people, to an ecological self of us, we, as a whole system. And so the shifting from that self, I see, as the images described in the PDF, from shifting from a pyramid kind of framework to a circular framework, where in the ego self, it's really like us at the top, and we are the superior race that view, and everything else falls below it, such as animals, ecosystems, that kind of thing. And it's through that hierarchy that we do feel that entitlement to be able to do what we want to nature and take from nature, and from the earth whatever we want. And the ecological self shifts to a more circular system where we acknowledge that we are not better than, we are actually just part of the web of life, and that there's this amazing complexity between the relationships of all living things. And what I love Joanna Macy's quote, where she says, when we perceive our deeper identity as an ecological self that includes not only just us, but also all life on Earth, then acting for the sake of our world doesn't seem like a sacrifice. It seems like a natural thing to do. And so that quote really frames why I believe it's important to encapsulate the deep ecology and ecological self and all of this work within this course, because when we embody that wild, embody ourselves, and come back home to our larger sense of self, then we're able to more naturally serve the world. It becomes just our way of being. Like, we wouldn't be any other way. We just would be. And it serves our activism. It strengthens it, because we come from that place, that deep, grounded place. And so that's just a real quick overview of what that is about. So Kate, do we want to move on to some quick questions and then we'll do a closing?
Yeah. Do you have that quote that you just read by Joanna in a format that you could share with us? Because I just love that one.
Yeah. Do you want me to write it in the comments, or?
Yeah. Chat or in the email, whatever, wherever is easiest for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. While Kaz is doing that, this is the time we're going to wrap up soon. But if you have any questions, please type them now. Looks like Hannah's had to go, so maybe we. Thank you for staying, Annie. Why don't we? Do you want to wrap it up with the Brene Brown thing, Karina, and then we can just see on the way.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for attending tonight, and for everyone who's watching this, because I know that a lot of people put in apologies to us. You're here with us in spirit, and we are so excited to meet you next week and in the following weeks. Just to quickly close up, I really encourage you to participate in the activities and the exercises that are given in each week, because a lot of these practices are our ability. We actually have to do them to be able to feel them. So you'll get the most out of it if you do that. And so we can only take you so far, and then it's your responsibility to journey or to not journey. And we would love, and if you got the most you could out of it. And also a reminder that there is a lot of exercises in 1 week, and you will probably do them over the next 7, 8, 10 weeks. That's why those resources are yours to have, so you can return to them and you can utilize them, and you will have to return to them as you grow and reflect. So that's definitely there as an opportunity and an invitation. So just to close our first week of Rise to the Call, I wanted to share with you one of my favourite authors, which is Brene Brown. Some of you might have come across her, or perhaps not. If you haven't, she's quite profound. And when you're talking about leadership and stepping up and rising, she does beautiful work around courage and what it means to be courageous and the vulnerability that comes along with that. So this is called A Manifesto of the Brave and Brokenhearted, and I just wanted to share it with you. There is no greater threat to the critics and the cynics and fearmongers than those of us who are willing to fall because we have learned how to rise. With skinned knees and bruised hearts, we choose owning our stories of struggle over hiding, over hustling, over pretending. When we deny our stories, they define us. When we run from struggle, we are never free. So we turn towards truth and look it in the eye. We will not be characters in our stories, not villains, not victims. not even the heroes. We are the authors of our lives. We write our own daring ending. We craft love from heartbreak, compassion from shame, grace from disappointment, and courage from failure. Showing up is our power. Story is our way home. Truth is our song. We are the brave and the brokenhearted. We are rising strong. Brené Brown. And I think that just summarizes what this week is about and the essence of this week and what we're trying to offer here. So once again, I honor all of you, those who are here and not here. And I'm so excited about journeying with you all for the next 4 weeks.
Yes, looking forward to next week. We'll see you all there. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Danny. Have a good rest of your night.